Hello, Billy Campbell from Blind Spot Gear, and welcome to our inaugural video, our pilot episode of Park Bench. Now, what we'll be doing in this series is going to a park and finding somebody on a bench and having a little bit of conversation about filmmaking and their experiences, and hopefully pass on some of that knowledge and wonderment to the likes of yourself. So, I'm just coming up these steps, and I think I found our first victim. It is none other than old man blind spot himself, Douglas, my dad, part of the documentary Dynasty of Scotland, cameraman for over 30 years, director extraordinaire. So let's get a couple cameras set up and crack on. Okay, good to see you. You're here enjoying the sunshine, are you?
I am, yeah. It's a rare treat for us on the west coast, so we're all out here along with plenty of other people enjoying some sunshine in the park.
Feeding the ducks down in the pond?
I have, yes, yeah, and just generally enjoying it.
Good. Well, for everyone that doesn't know, you are Douglas, my dad, and you've been working with Blind Spot Gear for the past couple of years, helping us along our journey.
I have, yeah.
But before that, you're a fully functioning documentary cameraman.
Almost functioning. I'm not sure about now, but anyway, I was fully functioning once, yeah.
Yeah, once upon a time. But I mean, your history goes back way. I mean, you were a BBC cameraman in the 70s.
I started in the mid 70s, so on shooting on an Arri BL 16mm 4x3 camera, yeah.
So what we're going to try and aim to do today is, drawing on your experience, have a discussion about something particular within the industry that hopefully people can learn from and use in their filmmaking. I thought today we would do a great opening one of interviews.
Okay. Yep.
And interview techniques.
The bread and butter of any documentary, or the meat of any documentary.
Not just documentaries, but you've got corporates, you've got any kind of 3-minute promotional film.
Yep.
A lot of them are just talking heads, or what is it Murray Grigger used to call them?
Snapping skulls.
Snapping skulls, a talking head. So that is interviews.
Yeah.
And you've got so much experience of documentaries. You then, after Ealing, went to freelance. Oh no, you went to Glasgow.
I came up to Scotland to the film unit here, and I did a lot of documentary work with Desmond Wilcox, who most people now won't have heard of, but he was married to Esther Ranson, and we did a big series called The Visit. Boy David, I was over in Las Vegas shooting World Poker Championships. But anyway, a lot of human interest documentaries, basically. And
one of my favourite documentaries of yours is the Lovers at the Brink.
Yeah, On the Great Wall with Marina Abramovich.
Marina Abramovich, the grandmother of performance art.
Yeah, you better not call her a grandmother, no, she like that.
No, I think she's
okay, is she?
Wikipedia, if you Wikipedia, it is the grandmother of not contemporary, performance art.
Performance art, yeah.
Performance pieces. Anyway, so your knowledge and experience in interviews is vast. So let's talk a bit about that. If you turn up to a job and you walk into somebody's kitchen, and you're there to interview them,
right?
What's your first point of call? What's the first thing you do to assess the situation?
Well, I would say that there's a thing called what I call the tyranny of style over content. So, content is king. There's nothing more important than content. And what is the content? The content is the person whose house you've gone into or whoever you're interviewing. So that, everything has to be focused on that. And so many times, you can see, obviously, if kids, they've got a DSLR, cine lens, you want to make it look beautiful, you want to make it look cinematic, it's got to be brilliant. But if you lose sight of the person you're interviewing and what they're going to give you, you're completely screwed. So the first thing when you walk in is you establish a relationship. If you may already know the person or have established a relationship over days, weeks, months. Very often you'll have never met them before. And the great thing, I think, is a cup of tea. You can't beat a cup of tea. I mean, I remember going in the early, sometimes, when you've got a director, and the director says, for God's sake, don't let them make you a cup of tea. I don't want to put any pressure on them.
Time.
It's time, and why should they have to make you a cup of tea, and it's pressure for them? It's not pressure for them. Making a cup of tea is a fantastic displacement activity for people who are anxious or worried. It's not complicated. They're not doing a 3-course meal for you. They're making a cup of tea. It's simple. And it gives them something to do. it breaks the ice, it gives you a chance to have a bit of a chat, establish that first link in with them. Because if you just treat them as a commodity,
there, sit them down,
sit
film
them down, do this, do that,
Yeah.
and faff around with the lights. So you have to start, you start chatting. And I always, if I go into somebody's house, you have a cup of tea, you chat for a bit, look around. If there's a picture of a boy or a girl in a graduation thing, you comment on it, because people love talking about their kids, and it just gets them in a comfort zone. So you've got to create this little cocoon of comfort and safety for them, and that's what you have to focus on.
So to summarise that, the tip of the day, when you turn up, the first protocol is make a cup of tea.
Cup of tea.
I think one of the interesting things actually with the work that you do in your documentaries is you have very, very few snapping skulls, or talking heads.
Yeah, trying to avoid it if I can.
All your interviews are set in situ.
Yeah.
People in their actualities, walking their kids to school, going out fishing, doing something. You had those pigeon fanciers.
Yeah.
So what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, people who obviously aren't used to being interviewed, if you sit them down and I'm going to ask you questions, oh my God, it's like being back at school for people, being called into the headmaster's study. If they're doing something, particularly something they love doing, like the pigeon fancier or a guy out fishing or what, there's something they're comfortable with, they know what they're doing, and they don't think about the question. So I think it's a great technique. You just be there, observe, do filming, and then just fire the question in. And they feel they're quite comfortable. They didn't even realise they're not being interviewed. That's really what it is. They don't realise what's happening, and it's just a very natural, easy way of doing something. Low key.
I think one of the masters of that technique is Louis Theroux.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's just incredible.
Yeah.
He gets into the situation. The subject is totally in control of the environment, of the situation, and he's just there as a bystander, just occasionally asking a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So nobody really thinks they're being interviewed. It's great. Aeroplane.
Yeah. Another bane of the interview.
Yeah, well, we had one earlier on, but I think we just skipped through it.
I think we got away with it. Yeah, should be all right.
Okay, so we just discussed actuality and getting people into their real life situations, making them feel comfortable, and then it's almost not like an interview. I guess one of the key things is interior or exterior. And which one do you go for? Any kind of views on that?
I generally prefer doing interviews interior, because people are much more in their comfort zone. We're out here today. I mean, I'm quite sort of happy being interviewed, but there's lots of people around. People are looking at us. So for somebody who's not that comfortable, it just adds to their could add to their anxiety and the tension. So I like people who are in their own home. They're generally comfortable in their own home. That's a place of safety for them. So I think that's always good. You've got a lot of extraneous things to worry about on an exterior interview. I mean, you can hear kids shouting. The aeroplane, you'd get interior as well. It's probably slightly worse exterior. And of course, the light changes all the time. So we're okay at the moment. We're sort of sitting under we're getting some dappled light from a tree. But you've constantly got cloud, sunshine. We're not in Southern California, so you haven't got the luxury of constant daylight.
But rewinding a little bit, the crew of 8 that you had to go out with.
7 or 8, seven or eight, yes, minimum 7.
So now you can do it with a crew of 1.
Yeah.
You can do your audio, your lighting, your camera, everything all in one. Does that make it better for accessing subject matter and content and people?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Obviously, you've got 7 people turning up in your living room. It's fucking overwhelming, for people. So one person is a lot less threatening. However, that one person can be fantastically stressed. I mean, I know from my own experience, you're shooting, so you've got to worry about the picture, you're faffing around with the sound, you may be running a radio mic and then you get interference on it. And
interviewing.
And then maybe asking the questions as well, So I think the one-man operation is mad. I mean, I think the minimum was always 2 people. And really ideally 3.
And 2 also people, we're kind of deviating from interview technique. But 2 people means you have creative bounce.
Yeah, exactly.
You get back in the car after the
Yeah,
interview.
what do you think? How do you think it went? I think you should have all, at the end of the interview I always ask the sound person, do you think we covered it? And I've worked with this great guy called Pee-wee for the last 25 years. I mean, I could kill him half the time, but he's a brilliant guy. I mean, he's fantastic. And he just, he sees things that other people don't see. I don't know. Yeah. And he's just great. He comes up with stuff that I would never have thought of and says, hang on a minute. And he's not shy about saying it.
Yeah, have you done this or thought about that?
You need to talk that, yeah.
Whereas if you're doing everything yourself, you get back in the car and just cry.
Yeah. And a sound guy, a good sound person, I can't say guy now, but a good sound person is such an asset if they're on the board, because they'll be listening and they'll hear stuff.
They can hear the story.
Yeah, and if you're tuned in, I mean, Pee-wee would just catch my eye and just do that,
Turn over.
Turn over. I'm getting stuff. And then immediately you just boom. Hit record and off you go.
Amazing. So the question is the actual asking of the questions.
Yeah.
I've conducted a few interviews myself now, which I didn't really think I would do. I always thought I'd be behind the camera. Running dry is a problem I find I quite often get. You ask a question and suddenly your brain just switches off.
Freezes up, yeah.
What kind of advice do you have for actually sitting down and conducting these questions?
The basic thing to start, you never ask a yes or no question. So it's not, did you go on holiday last week? It's, where did you go on holiday? I mean, it's very basic, but, that's the thing. So it's always a, why, how, when type of question, so that they can't answer yes or no. The main bit of advice, I mean, you'll always have a list of questions you want to ask. You'll have a brief, but you have to listen. So a lot of the time, as an interviewer, you can be tense as well. You're worried about it. You've got a nightmarish executive producer who's going to give you an absolute roasting when you get back. Who's probably never been out filming. Better be careful what I say, but anyway, you know what I mean.
Well, as long as you don't name names, you're all right.
I won't name any names. So you have to listen. So that's so important, because you'll get, you get clues. You maintain eye contact. Don't be looking down at your notes all the time. You've got to maintain eye contact with the person and listen, because that will give you the clue. And watch them and observe. How are they comfortable? How are they feeling? Because you're then going to have to. You may have to put in that killer question. That they're not going to want to.
And when's the right time to do it?
When's the right time? And if it is a difficult question, I usually say, well, look, I know this is a really difficult question for you.
Yeah.
But I'm just now going to ask you about.
So you're not springing it on them.
Your history as a wife beater, or I don't do that. But I mean, you just have to be direct.
Yeah.
So, and be sympathetic. I realise this is hard. This is hard for you, and but listen all the time.
Empathy.
Empathy, yeah, exactly. But you have to listen to what people are saying.
Yeah.
And that's how you build the interview. I worked with Desmond Wilcox, and he was just brilliant at that. And often, don't say anything. You just wait. And then it'll come. The sound. The moment. Yeah.
Well, I think to kind of sum up, documentary as an art form is one of the most exciting and rewarding art forms to be part of.
I think it's amazing, because you're constantly having to improvise and think on your feet. It's not. I mean, drama is very challenging, and it's brilliant what the guys do, but they have got costume, wardrobe, grips, lighting guys, to make things happen for them. You're doing a documentary, you're on your own, and you've really got to be inventive, and you're problem solving all the time, and that's really what I like about it.
Yeah, I think that sums it up just better than I could. So the tips that we've discovered from today are: make a cup of tea.
Make a cup of tea.
First things first.
Yeah. Listen.
Listen. We've got interviewing people whilst they're actually doing something that they're comfortable with.
Displacement activity for people.
Displacement activity.
Yeah.
There we are. Interviewing inside in their own comfort of their house, rather than bringing them out to an open.
Don't expose. Unless be careful. People are exposed if they're outside.
Yeah. So maybe next week, I don't know what we'll discuss. Maybe composition or.
Think of something. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots more we can pick your brains about.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, we'll let you get back to feeding the ducks.
Okay.
And
Can we have a cup of tea?
actually, let's go for a cup of tea.
Okay, good.
All right. That's from Blind Spot Gear. You can say goodbye to that camera.
Goodbye.
And goodbye from me.